Hello, everybody. Welcome to Paranormally Blonde Live. You're right here on the X, the new mainstream. Just before we get started, though, you can catch us on all the great podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I got to look here because I can't remember them all. Spotify, Spreaker, and Audible. There are several more that you can catch us on. So please be sure to check out those as well if you ever want to replay us or listen to us there. But you are live with us right here on the X. So welcome. It's Monday. Here we are. Rainy where I am. What about you, Deedee?
Oh, it's beautiful out. It's sunny. And
I just wanted to hear that because I just had a week of that. I was pretty much next door to you for a week, and it was beautiful. And here I am back in the supposed to snow,
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's all good though, right? Yeah. We had some great shows. Like we had James Lady last week. Mm-hmm. Great evidence, right? Like so intriguing. Like that freaky EVP and then him like that's I've never heard anything like that before.
No.
And
I have not either.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know that I would have gone to Bigfoot. Like hearing that like whatever that was. Yeah, that sounded
it wasn't human, and it didn't sound like an animal either. It sounded like something otherworldly.
Something other. It was and great voices all over the place.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, James Lady has an amazing voice. He's so calm, and I could kind of see why, like him out in the woods, how he could attract that.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because after the show, Brett Karsten's The Haunted Medium. Hey, Empty Casket. He asked a question. He said, I wonder if any of James, I think Brett was kind of maybe alluding to that James maybe has some psychic ability and if that's what was attracting it. But, he's so calm and he's so collected that I could kind of understand maybe why they would check him out because he's a woodsman, right? He likes to fish and he likes to be out in the woods in Michigan. So kind of see why maybe they were like checking him out a little bit. Like,
he's kind of part of that environment already.
Yeah. So it was interesting. It was really interesting show. So we've had some great shows and it's not going to stop. We've got a great guest tonight. But before we get started, let's go to my deck. Not tarot. No, we're going to do rando questions because why not? It's Monday. Sure. It's kind of been crazy. Even our guest said he's had a crazy Monday.
Yeah.
So let's just
What's the deal?
I don't even know. Oh, here's a good one. Has anyone started a rumor about you? If so, what was it about?
Oh my gosh.
Do you even know? Do you know that? Like, do you know if anybody has?
I don't think so. Not that I can recall.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yes.
That's right. I remember you telling me one.
Yes, mine was quite quite interesting. Yeah. Sometimes women can get rather petty and jealous and they like to throw around the, you're sleeping with my husband scenario. So it happens. Rumors happen. I always say you have to let your personality and who you are speak louder than those rumors, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm not going to even try to squelch it because honestly, get over it. The funny thing was they lived right next door to me. Oh. And like my car's home every day. Like you literally could see that I was home every single day, but sure. Okay. So tonight we're kind of taking a different route. Right. We're getting right in here with Dustin Ryan Crowley. We got to know, is he connected to the Crowley name? We got to ask that. Yeah. It was the first thing you're like, wait, what? And he is a demonologist. and studied theology. So we have some questions for him, and just want to kind of dig into like how, like, do you, I don't know if he is connected to that name, right? Is it just natural to say I want to dive into demonology, or like, we all go into paranormal for different reasons, right? Like we all kind of want to, but why choose the darker side? I don't know that I've ever wanted to explore that, like to even think that I could do demonology, right? I don't know.
It's
So I guess,
interesting, but I don't know if I would want to be communicating. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and how, all these different things that you have to probably do to protect yourself to go into that. And
Right.
yeah. And is it just an inner calling? I mean, these are things we got to know. And Dustin came recommended by our friend Bill at Empty Casket. I put the call out, and Bill was like, hey, you got to talk to Dustin. Or I think he put Dustin out there, like his name out to the universe. And we finally got in touch with Dustin. So he is going to join us here this evening, Mr. Dustin Ryan Crowley.
Whoops. There he is.
There he is. Hey, see, it's Monday. It's like,
I was about to say, it had to be Monday.
Well, welcome to our gathering here, Dustin. We appreciate your time. I mean, do we just go right out the?
Yeah.
We should just go right out the chute. Should we just ask?
Yes.
The last
Sure.
name. Is this really your last name, or are you connected in any way to the Crowleys? What's going on here, Dustin?
So it is my actual God-given birth name.
Okay.
And it's crazy. I never really, like, growing up, the biggest connection that I ever thought I really had to it was the song Mr. Crowley by Ozzy.
Okay.
And I never really thought much about Alistair until much, much later in life. So that was always very, very cool. I have done a little bit of digging into my ancestry to see if I am connected to him. Records get a little bit fuzzy past about the 1700s. So I know I wasn't like a direct descendant, but families were kind of close together in England, Ireland. So maybe not.
Right.
But if I ever like try to work with any like ancestor spirits or anything, I don't just invite anyone and everyone.
Yeah.
Right. You're very careful.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see.
Yeah.
Very later in life. So either you have sold your soul to the devil and you look extremely young, or you are extremely young. I have to say, you look very young, and to be a demonologist, I mean, that's some crazy, taking on demons. I mean, you would think that would age a person. So
Yeah.
what's your secret, Dustin? You must share.
So the secret is I just let stuff roll off my back. I don't hold on to a lot of stressors. And, kind of how like you were talking earlier about how people were like spreading rumors and stuff about you. I recently worked for an employer who like tried to spread rumors about me.
Huh.
And you know what? I don't care. Cool. Whatever. See ya. Next.
Yep.
I've got too much going on in my life to get, bogged down with petty day-to-day stuff. So, but to answer your question, I am 33.
You are young. You are young. You look
So,
very young.
I'm definitely still young for the paranormal world. Have hopefully many decades ahead of me.
Good. Well, I mean, I feel like in the business of demonology, right? Like, I think, this is something, as more people get involved in paranormal, it just seems like a lot of people are diving more into the deep end of the dark side.
Yeah.
I feel, right? And especially now with Ed and Lorraine Warren sort of out of that picture, it's like, now who's going to kind of take that reign, right?
Yep. And
so
it's always scary when I meet other people who say they're demonologists, because it's a lot of work. And to me, I kind of started in the field through my studies as a minister in religion. So the short version is, when I went and got my theology degree and I started working as a pastor, a lot of the, I guess, talking heads around me within that denomination had this belief that like everyone's affected by demons. There's an alcoholic demon. There is like sexual immorality demon, an addiction demon, like anything that could possibly go. Like if you've got a flat tire, there's a flat tire demon.
Really?
Just
I've
like
met him.
so they've got all these ideas about the demons are doing every single thing bad in the world. So being, right out of college and like gathering as much as I could, because I was born and raised in the Protestant denomination. I got my theological education through the Roman Catholic Church at Belmont Abbey College in Belmont, North Carolina. So, I tried to expose myself to as much as possible.
Okay.
And when I hear people saying, oh, well, demons are like the number one cause of everything bad in the world, well, I don't really see any textbooks on demons. I don't really see a lot of keynote speakers talking about it. So there's this obvious void. And if I'm going to be the best pastor to my flock as possible, I need to understand the enemy. And so that's how I got started in it.
Interesting. You it's funny. Deedee, you said, and I apologize for my stutters today. I just flew in at 6:30 this morning, so I am stuttering through my thoughts here a little bit. But you were like, "Oh, the flat tire demon." Also, Get Haunted Rob.
Oh yeah.
He just posted that he had a flat tire as well. So there you go, Rob. The flat tire demon. I didn't realize that this the demon existed, and I always just thought that would have been our roads. The Metro Detroit roads seem to be a demon in itself. So I don't know if Rob's roads are bad. Deedee, I don't know if the roads where you were on were bad and you just...
I think my tires were bad.
Okay, so you study theology. You're a minister. Do you have an actual congregation that you do speak to, or? Not
any longer.
Okay.
With a lot of the theological differences I had with the main denominations around where I live, I decided it was best to just part ways with the denominations. That being said, if anyone around me has any type of sacramental need, marriage, baptism, communion, funerals, anything, I'm always there to help and support. So while I don't pastor a congregation any longer, I definitely still take my calling and my priesthood pretty seriously.
I could totally see you as one. I think that you could attract a whole new, lot of people that kind of, that are looking for a new breath of fresh air in speaking religion. Sometimes they don't want maybe traditional. So, but you're studied, you're well educated in it. So I could see you totally being in front of a church. And
what is your denomination now, or non-denominational? Like, what do you classify? What kind of church would you be leading if you were doing it?
I'd probably go with non-denominational. But that being said, I have a very deep love and respect for the Episcopals, for the Methodists, for the Catholics, but at the same time, going into the Catholic priesthood, a bit much for me. So
yeah.
Something along those lines.
Okay.
What about exorcisms? Like, that was somewhere in your bio. Have you done an exorcism?
I have performed one on my own, assisted with two, and consulted on many others. So that's kind of something that I picked up more from the Catholic side of my education and how they view things. But I will say that it is exceptionally rare to encounter a demon in the field. And a lot of times before I even start opening up my Bible, saying any type of prayers, lighting any incenses, anything like that, I always will sit down and go through a pretty extensive background checklist with any potential clients, like what's going on, how is your mental health, how are you emotionally feeling, and I'll refer them to go to doctors, to therapists, to psychiatrists, because before I want to get involved, I definitely need to make sure that there's not some underlying health concerns, whether it be mental health or physical health, because hormonal imbalances, mineral deficiencies in your blood and your body, they can all affect you tremendously. So I don't want to do any more harm than could have already been going on. And, going through sometimes, especially using faith and religion, it can be almost a placebo effect. And you might temporarily think I'm getting better. And then a year from now, you could be in like a suicidal state or something like that because you didn't get the treatment you needed. So I always do a lot of background research to make sure that before I go through those rites, that this person is, as best as we can possibly classify them, actually possessed.
D Hoot has a question. She wants you to define demon from your perspective.
That's a great question.
Very good question. So I go with more of the Greek form, the daemon, which is, so with the Greeks, you've got men and you have gods, and then you have like your Hercules, your demigods. And so for the Greeks, anything that didn't fall into one of those buckets was a demon. That's not how they pronounced it, but I'm not Greek, so I'll butcher it. So for my studies, what I look into as far as like the demon could be anything from the Anglo-Christian view of a demon. It could be an angel. After all, demons in the Christian view are just fallen angels. It could be like an elemental type spirit, mainly through like Native American cultures and folklore. The Fae with like your Celtic type faiths. So I don't try to limit myself with what it could be.
So you're open to it all. This question was given to me, so I can't take credit for it. But how many demons do you think exist?
A fun answer would be 666.
But it would never work out like that. That's just too easy, right?
No, it couldn't be that easy. I would say realistically, probably hundreds of thousands.
Really? Okay.
Maybe more. But that being said, how many do I think would be on like the mortal plane of existence and not in the eternal realm, hell, whatever you want to call it? I would say the majority of them are not on this plane of existence. The vast, vast majority.
Can people actually summons them? Like, is that a real thing you see where people like try to summons them so they can, and then does that make them attached to them?
It's definitely possible to summon one. If you don't know what you're doing, it will definitely lead to an attachment to possession. I've walked in or know people who have walked in on especially like teenagers, oh, it's Halloween. Let's all sit in a circle, light some candles, and pull up the Ouija board, and let's see what we can get to come through. That's not a good idea, especially the legitimate cases of exorcism that I have worked on or consulted on have all involved a Ouija board with people not properly knowing how to use it. Because it's a great tool for spirit communication, but just like you would use, dowsing rods or a pendulum or a spirit box or a K2 meter or whatever, you got to know how to use your equipment. If you don't know how to use your equipment, stuff can go wrong.
I like that you said that, because I think oftentimes, we always talk about the Ouija board, but communication is communication, right? So is it the intention that you're setting behind using that piece of equipment, whether it's a Ouija board? I mean, because there are lots of people who use the Ouija board and they've only had positive experiences, right? So is it really the intention of the user that brings these demons forward?
I would say so. Intention is so integral to anything that you do. And especially here in America, it's a little bit different in like European countries. But in America, we always view a Ouija board as this very dark device. And so, if you're going to use something to communicate with the other side, am I going to use something that's full of light and love? Or do I want to get a demon? Do I want to summon something dark? So I go get a tool that I've associated with the darkness. So it kind of tells me a little bit about their intentions and their mindset based on the tools that they're trying to use to communicate.
Another question from Deehoot is, she wants to know, is a poltergeist a demon?
Good question. Like, that's a good one. I would say yes and no. Kind of to my definition of how I would view it, I would say yes, because I would fall it in that classification of it's not a deity and it's not a person. So to me, yes. But if you were more in the Christian worldview, it would probably be no, because they don't tend to be like a powerful servant of a higher, more evil master, like a Satan, Lucifer kind of being. So depending on your worldview, maybe.
And I was going to actually, that was a great question, Dee. And it was kind of something I was wondering. So we talk a lot about demons, and I don't know what the number is, and then what really qualifies a demon, besides maybe what the Bible states. But we talk about darker entities, we talk about negative energies, right? So when does it go from negative energy to demonic? And then have you ever been asked on a case that maybe they wanted an exorcist, but do you exorcise negative energy, or is that just negative energy and it just is what it is? I mean, what's the demarcation of these darker or more negative entities that cross over to the demonic world?
So for me, what I would consider something to be a demon in the field, with like, do I need to go in and exorcise a person or a location, would be, is the entity capable of overcoming and overpowering the person?
Okay.
Or are they going to be able to control their thoughts, their emotions, their body? If so, then yeah, I'm going to go in and we're going to do an exorcism. Now, if it's just like a evil, dark spirit, they attach. It happens. And if that's the case, then we'll just work on maybe unattaching it, help the spirit move on if that's possible. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it is. And for me, I view what I do as a ministry of mercy. So whether that's, showing mercy to a living person or showing mercy to a spirit, everyone deserves a chance at peace. So if I can help someone find that peace, I always try to. But especially if anything is affecting your mood, it's all you can focus on, all you can think about. Or to be honest, if it involves anything with children, period, I don't care. You could just be Casper the Ghost. You could be Lucifer himself. If I ever get a case involving a child, like I've got one where I'm traveling to another state this weekend that involves a child. Whatever's there's leaving. I don't care what anything happens. It's got to go.
Yeah. So it's not so much that it's all demonic that you would exorcise from somebody's life. It's if it is affecting their life in any way, it needs to be exorcised, so to speak. Or can you only exorcise demons? I guess that's the part that, is it semantics sometimes with the wording? Like if we say exorcising, then we use the word clearing, right? The people who work in the light would say I'm clearing the space. And then sometimes people that work with a little darker entity uses the term exorcise. So they're essentially the same thing, correct?
Pretty much. Like I usually use the phrase like cleansing if I'm doing something that's not so dark. But then for exercising, kind of thinking of the root of the phrase exercise, you're cutting something off, you're removing something. So with spirits, whether you go through and you burn some sage, ring some bells, use some singing bowls, music, whatever you might happen to do, you're just kind of helping to raise the vibrational energy into space, making it so that more light and peace can kind of fill it. And then for something that's more of an exorcism, you're taking something and you've got to go.
Right.
Okay. Here's another question for you. It says, Dustin, why do you feel certain people become possessed and others don't? It seems it's rarely someone atheist or less religious.
So the last case I worked on was actually an atheist. And I actually skipped several steps in how I would process it because her husband, ex-husband, was really good friends with me, and she had told him what was going on, and he's like, well, can I do anything to help you? Well, not unless you know an exorcist. Well, he did. So he told me that the main reason he was calling in is she'd always been either atheist or agnostic.
Mhm.
So either there's something out there but we'll never know what it is, or there's nothing out there. And after she began to experience the negative entity that was attaching to her, she converted to Catholicism.
Huh.
So for her to go from one extreme to the other, that was pretty big, especially for her.
Yeah.
But getting back to the question a little bit, there's a lot of things that can make people susceptible. If you don't get a lot of sleep at night and you're tired, your natural defenses will be down. If you are constantly inebriated in one form or another, whether that's drugs or alcohol, again, it's just bringing down your natural defenses. And a demon, whatever phrase you want to use for those type of entities, they're going to go for the most susceptible and the most weak people that they can get to, because it's a lot of work to attach. It's not easy for them. And part of why they might go to more religious people, they're already open typically to the spiritual world in one way or another. And they are also open to a light and a dark. So they don't have to do a lot to already get into that mindset. And then a pagan friend of mine mentioned this, and it's kind of always stuck with me. Sometimes a lot of people will pray to God, but without being specific about what God they're praying to. So, oh God, I pray that you will help Jenny down the street. But where I am here in the Appalachian Mountains, whatever God might hear that prayer may not be the Christian God. I mean, these mountains here are older than life itself. There's been a lot that's come and gone through here. So
that's interesting. That's interesting that you kind of mentioned that you have to be specific, because when I was this last week, I was in Sedona, and I did a lot of different, met a lot of different people, and worked on a lot of different spiritual things. And the person that I worked with, she's a reader, and she also draws out your chakras. She used the term, she said, we were talking about manifesting, and she said, you have to be very careful about manifesting, because if you're not hyper specific, what universe hears is what universe hears. And so say you just say, I can't remember I'm trying to remember. She had a really good specific. She's like, you want to kind of like, don't just say like, because she said like, I want to date. And she's like, I kept putting out there, I don't want to date. And she didn't really do something super specific. And she goes, and I just feel like what universe kept hearing was I don't want to date, instead of saying what I want is. She's like, so it does, like, that would make sense to me, what you're saying about who you're reaching out to, because and as you stated, is if your state of mind is maybe a little bit more desperate, right? Like maybe what you're reaching out to is more of a desperate situation, and not one that would fall upon, sympathetic and empathetic ears, maybe. So that kind of like just kind of touched, that resonated with me a little bit, how you said that. So I don't know. And I've seen studies done that they've talked about the arc of, who does kind of believe in possessions, and they kind of have that the really, really religious, there are a high percentage of it, and then the ones that aren't. But it's that middle group, I guess, like maybe just the people that go to church on Sunday, but maybe don't live it quite as much as the hyper religious or the ones that aren't religious at all. They tend to get hit, I guess, the most out of everybody because they're kind of in that in between plane. You believe enough, but you're not quite sure. So maybe, like to your point, Dustin, you're vulnerable. You're open to, being swayed one way or the other, right? Maybe you're not quite sure where you land on that. So that's very interesting. Hi, Sam. Everybody's popping on here.
Yeah. Oh, I have a question though that I wanted to ask.
Sure.
What about demons attacking you in your sleep? Like having a dream about a demon, or maybe waking up to a demon where you're not sure you're asleep or awake? Because I have a story from a long time ago that happened to me, and I've always wondered, was it an actual? Actually, I have two. And so,
well, I could see it happening. I definitely wouldn't discount it. Because, I mean, talking about being vulnerable, when are you most vulnerable?
Right.
When you're sleeping. I would say especially if someone practices like an astral projection or lucid dreaming or something like that, that it would probably make them a little bit more susceptible to something like that during their sleep than normal.
wow. Huh.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
And you kind of, you're so involved in the dream world, Deedee.
Yeah, I'm really into dream analysis.
Like, do you open yourself up to something that's a little? Do you just open yourself
Probably.
up?
I just open myself up to receive, and so. But it's funny because now I feel like I don't really. Last time I was dreaming about haunted dolls that were hissing at me, but I was a little stressed.
Oh
so.
My!
I know, right? But a long time ago, I'll tell you real quick. Most people probably know my story, but when I was 17, I went to a Pentecostal church. And they had told me that I needed to, and I had already been baptized Catholic, but they had told me that I needed to have the Holy Spirit possess my soul, or I was going to get possessed by something else. So she gave me a prayer, which I'm sorry I don't remember, but I said the prayer. I was laying in bed. It was like early evening, like maybe 8:00 at night. I was laying in bed. I said the prayer, and the next thing I knew, something flew out at me. And Courtney likes to call it the meat man, but he was just like all muscle, no features, not male or female. But its wrists went over my wrists, its ankles went over my ankles, and it was literally like sucking the breath out of me. And I was trying to fight it off, and I was trying to say, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And it kept making me say, I rebuke you in the name of Satan. And finally, I spelled the letters in my mind, JES, and it was gone, and it gone. And I has always freaked me out.
I hate the meat man story. That I don't like when you bring that up, because now I'm going to just think of the meat man for the rest of the evening. Kind of freak. So, here's a good question though, Deedee. So that was your first experience with something evil-esque,
or probably paranormal at all.
Sure.
And I've always wondered, did she misguide me and tell me a prayer that I shouldn't have said, and I summoned something? Was it a nightmare?
And once you're susceptible, like, is it like sometimes people that get certain things, like once you've had that experience with a demon, are you more now likely to have more experiences or less experiences?
Or is it still there somewhere?
Or, yeah.
Ooh. So, it definitely does sound like a demonic story.
Yeah.
It does. And especially, like once you go to like the name of Jesus and it going away, it's a pretty strong indicator. But as far as like once it's happened, are you more susceptible? Yes, but no. It depends on how you change.
Okay.
Because like for you guys, you're active in the paranormal and the spiritual worlds. So you, at this point, I'm assuming, have all of this white light surrounding you and this positivity. So especially now, I would say it's highly unlikely that a demon is still attached to you. If it ever was attached, you would be less likely to be afflicted by one because you're not vulnerable anymore. But, if someone encounters a demon and they go right back to, I want to use the Ouija board to talk to the darkest thing that comes through, it can be addicting. It really can. And just like addiction to drugs or alcohol, if you don't want to get better, you're not going to.
Oh, yeah. Sam's talking about a story. It says, I have a good story for Dustin about what happened to my cousin's husband seeing that monkey in the hospital with amber eyes. Was that likely demonic? Why would a demon take that form?
And she did share a picture with us, and
Yeah.
it's a very interesting picture for sure. And the story itself is very interesting.
Having like possibly glowing ambery eyes could be it taking the form of like a monkey.
Mhm.
Like if you read the like actual descriptions of angels in the Bible, or if you read the descriptions of demons in like the Goetia or something along those lines, so common for us. Like it's got the head of a lion and the body of a falcon and
Mhm.
all of these things. So it could be just it could have been something demonic, and especially if it was at a hospital. Hospitals are kind of very energetic places, especially for darker energies. It's a lot of the times where someone goes to die. If you have any type of traumatic experience, you go to the hospital. You know, if you overdose, you go to the hospital. So there's a lot of energy for the demonic to kind of feed off of at those places.
This brings me up to a question. So Empty Casket Paranormal says he's talking to Sam, saying that monkeys with odd color eyes are common with alien cases. And so then that brings me to ask, some people would think that maybe demons are actually aliens. Does that ever cross your mind?
I've heard that. I, you know, cards on the table. I have not studied ufology enough to have an opinion one way or the other. I have heard a lot about like synchronicities with cave systems and the correlation with seeing UFOs and ghosts and Bigfoot all in the same areas and how they could be related. So I'm not going to say yes, but I can say no.
Right. That's kind of like all things in paranormal. I'm curious. So you're also a part, I believe, president of your paranormal team. So, you know, do you find now that more people are open, right, to paranormal and out there doing it and they're sharing it, right? Like before you might have done it, but it was a little more secretive. Now we're all over social media. I mean, so TikTok is now huge with paranormal stuff. So you can't find one social media platform that's not involved in paranormal, right? So do you find now that we are so open in this genre and all of it, cryptids, UFOs, right? Like the whole shebang. Do you find that there would be more out there with demons or demonic entities, or is it just we're hearing more, so it's all relative?
It could be both.
Yeah.
Because with a lot of the content creators out there, you know, they're giving people the ideas, they're making them more open to it. And, you know, for good, bad, or indifferent, a lot of paranormal media, they don't show you everything that goes on with an investigation. They show you the highlights over a week or so, condensed down into 30 minutes, where you've got people that go out and like provoke and antagonize spirits. And people learn, hey, if I want to have an encounter, I need to go tell this spirit, hey, come fight me.
Right.
And you mess around, you're going to find out. So in a lot of ways, it's making it more susceptible for people to encounter negative spirits, because you can learn how to use almost any piece of equipment quickly. You can learn the basics of how to communicate with spirits pretty quickly. But what a lot of people don't spend a lot of time on is, do you focus on spiritual protection? Do you focus on shadow work? Do you focus on how to keep barriers up? Do you focus on putting up a ward around your home so that nothing can follow you back? And for me, when I onboard a new person onto my team, before they go out into the field, it's, hey, this is how you keep yourself safe. This is everything you need to know before you even step foot on a haunted location. Because, you know, for one, you have to have each other's back in the field. And then for two, selfishly, I know if they go home with an attachment, I have to go help them. So I might as well teach them before
Yeah.
before I go and have to help them after,
Mhm.
because it's all the same,
Mhm.
but making sure that, you know, it doesn't go home to their kids, to their pets, to their husbands or wives. That's pretty important.
Yeah.
So do you think that demons are tangible then? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, is this are they more of a mental affliction, or do you really find demons to be a tangible thing that comes out and
I would say they're typically more like mental, spiritual energies,
okay.
but they could be tangible if they were strong enough. I mean, just like in my 15 years of being a paranormal investigator, I've seen full bodied apparitions a handful of times. Just like that, a demon, if it has enough energy, could physically manifest.
Mhm.
But that's pretty rare, even for a ghost to be able to be physically manifest. And then demons are already rare enough on their own. So it would be pretty outstanding if you were to see one physically manifested.
Mhm.
That'd be pretty scary too.
Yeah, well,
Here's another question for you. Deedee says, I have a relative who took his own life. A psychic told me he had a demon. Do you believe people who take their own lives generally have a demon?
and sorry about your loss, Dee. That's a horrible way to lose somebody.
Yeah, very sorry to hear about that, Dee. It could have been. Now, I'm not going to say that everyone who commits suicide did so because of a demonic attachment,
Mhm.
but demonic attachments can lead to a deep sinking depression that can lead to suicide.
Mhm.
So it could have been. And if that was the case, I'd really hate to hear it.
So this leads to what do you use to keep yourself safe in the first place then?
Now, these are the important questions. So for me, it all kind of comes down to I practice shadow work, which, if your listeners aren't familiar with it, it kind of comes from the concept of the shadow from Carl Jung and understanding the dark side of your personality and your ego. What are my insecurities, my fears? Why do I have them?
Mhm.
So just taking an inventory of yourself.
Mhm.
And then I focus on meditation and getting in touch with the good light energy side of myself. As far as the tangibles, I always surround myself and my team with a white light of protection before we do anything public or private. I always lead us through a grounding meditation and help us bring in that white light around us. I usually wear a hematite ring, a few other pieces of jewelry. Um, I have holy water on me almost at all times, especially if I'm in the field.
Mhm.
I use protection oil. And outside of just building up my own protection, it's also just if I'm on an investigation and I feel like I might be getting worn down, whether I'm getting tired or whatever,
Mhm.
I'll reapply the protection. I'll step out and ground myself. I'll pull team members out and ground them if need be, or guests. I've been in the middle of a public ghost hunt event and, just like, hey, I need you to come outside with me right now. And just walk them through breathing exercises until they calm down and then help them ground.
Huh. Here's another question from Sam. It says, are there different levels of demons? Like they all have different jobs. I know a pastor that started studying this and things started going crazy in his life and just stopped altogether.
There are.
Mhm.
If you follow with the Goetia, which is kind of one of the central texts within the demonology field,
Mhm.
the demonology field is completely unregulated, so there's really no one set way to do it or study it. But with like the Lesser Key of Solomon, it details the 72 principal rulers of hell, and each one of those demons, they have X amount of legions underneath them that they control. but they also, this one's specialty might be philosophy. This one might be in helping you find the familiar. This one might be in love and passion. So they do all kind of have their own roles, just like with angels. You have messenger angels, you have warrior angels. So every entity has its own purpose, just like with people. You've got truck drivers and people, you've got scientists, you've got pastors, you've got teachers. Everyone everywhere always has a specific job that they're best at.
Okay, so I just heard in that answer, though, there are a number of demons. So if you say, do you follow the 72 demon rule? And could the ones that
Loosely.
fall under, okay, so if so you say you have 72 of the CEOs of demons, right? Like they're the big wigs of the demons. So then they have their minions under them. But are those minions really demonic, or are those the negative energies that they go out there and do their bidding, so to speak?
I would say probably more demonic / energies, because they're definitely not as powerful as the main 72. So they can still do a lot of damage in your life. But, I'll be honest, if I am ever in the field and something says the name of one of the 72 through any of the vices or anything I'm working with, yeah, I'm done. Because, if I can't bring in help for myself to help deal with something like that quick enough, we're just going to leave.
So I have a question to take on that. And again, this is not my question, but it was a subject that was brought up to me. And I have never, when I was very much into Christianity and as a kid growing up in Sunday school and just going to church every Sunday and youth group, I've never once heard this claim. So I'm curious what you think about this. The claim was made during Lent, 40 days, that Jesus just disappears and this is when the demons come in and do their work. I've never heard that Jesus leaves us for those 40 days. So I'm curious why there would be those who work in this field that are in paranormal, that they feel like, where did this, I understand what Lent is, but that doesn't mean he leaves us every year. And where is he going?
I have never heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, no clue.
Yeah, okay. I never heard it either. And I thought, well, maybe I was asleep that day. Maybe I missed that class. I don't know. But I've never, and is it just metaphorical? But I think the claim was made, or at least I feel like the way it was explained to me is during Lent, this is when Jesus disappears. And this is why the demons can come in and do the work that they need to work during. But then you would think, do you have a big pop during Lent? You would think that the exorcists around the world would be busy as hell during 40 days, right? Like how that doesn't really, I don't know if that really makes good sense to me, but I just had to know what you thought on that. Let's see. Oh, okay. Maureen, good question.
Yeah, she has, do you think asylums are definitive cases of mental illness, or are they demonic possession or negative attachment? I've always wondered that about, oh my gosh, what are the people who talk to themselves? Schizophrenia. Like when you have schizophrenia and I saw a lady on the street just the other day that she was talking to, it wasn't her cell phone. So, you wonder.
I mean, there are definitely people that believe that. I don't necessarily view it that way myself because, within the medical community with schizophrenia, there are medications and treatments that you can go through with that. I was actually called in to do an exorcism for someone who has schizophrenia. I don't know. It was in the last 2 years since COVID. So I don't know what year it was or what month. All of those weeks kind of blended together, but just, very quickly kind of, it became obvious that the client had mental health issues. So I was there with my team, so we went through and we blessed the home. And then the person that called us in, I was like, hey, I've done what I can from a spiritual side of things. This person needs to be seen by a mental health professional. Because if I'm right, what I did is not going to do anything. And it didn't. I don't know if they ever went and got that next level of care that they needed because, HIPAA laws and all that. I couldn't figure that out myself, but I really do hope that they did.
And those, the mental illnesses anyways, I think, again, kind of like paranormal experiences, I think that therapists and the doctors out there, some of these illnesses are so closely tied together and related, or have such similar afflictions that you could be touted as one thing, you have right? Some believe in multiple personalities. Some would call you this, some would call you bipolar. I mean, but yet it could just be one little slight thing. So then, there's no, kind of like what you said, there's some regulation to mental health, but there's really not, because we're still really far behind on what we do for people afflicted with mental health, right? So there's no really good study on what we're really dealing with. And, is it paranormal, or is it truly just mental health? But it doesn't matter. I mean, could it? I don't know. I mean, does it matter? I just want to point out, we're down to our last 9 minutes. So we want to get in as much as we can with Dustin. But for those that aren't done with the conversation, we're going to just pop on over for a little after party with Dustin, and maybe we can get a little deeper into some of these stories. Or if you have a little more personal question that you want to ask, then pop over to Paranormally Blonde right after the show, and we'll continue the conversation. So yeah, I think that would be really hard. And then, do you work with doctors? Like, are you like tied to any of the facilities that maybe would say like, hey, Dustin, we're having some weird anomalies going on around this person that we're also witnessing. We need your help.
I'm not tied in with any.
Okay.
I've put myself out there, on social media and whatnot, so I can be found if needed. But in my experience, typically the medical community would not usually be the one to reach out to me.
Maybe they should. Maybe we need to start tying. Maybe you can work with Haunted MD, Dr. Molnar.
Yeah, he can do both.
Yeah.
All right. Here's another question. I think we have the time for this. But Sam says, but demonic possession is definitely not how the movies portrays, correct? I feel like it's subtle changes, maybe decision-making stuff like that. That's what I always have thought too, that it's not like you're, barfing green stuff, but it's your personality is completely different. Like you're a different person. That's really an indication, right?
Yeah, it's like the movies, but it's not. Like if you encounter a demon the next day, you're not going to have all these scabs on your face and puking up this green sludge. But if given enough time, it could probably get there if the client didn't commit suicide or something like that first. And it does start with slow, gradual changes. Maybe you just get more irritable. You stop eating, you stop sleeping, and then it just starts to snowball from there.
So could that be the steps of possession, isn't it? And I don't know them, like oppression is run, right? Don't you start with oppression, or I don't remember how it goes, and then it's like possession. I think, isn't there 3? Isn't it like something, oppression, and then possession? I can't remember.
I want to say maybe like suppression.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember it off the top of my head right now, but kind of like at first it's going to just kind of wear down your senses. Then it's going to start dropping the little, maybe you should do this instead. And then it gets to the point where it's just, that's all you can do and think about.
That's very interesting. Well, we're gonna continue this, because I feel like this is the kind of topic that you can't just be like, we're just going to touch on it. Okay, see you later. You got like more to ask. I think people have some questions here. They want even some personal stuff people are putting out there. I think they really want to dig into this a little bit. So please pop over right after we end here with Paranormally Blonde on the X live. You're going to just jump right over and join Paranormally Blonde on their YouTube live for a little bit more of this. But how can somebody find you, Dustin? Like, is that something that your paranormal team offers, or is this something separate that you do from your paranormal team?
It's something that my team offers.
Okay.
I'm the only one on the team that does it, but you can find me on Facebook at Great State Paranormal, Instagram at Great State Paranormal, TikTok, I think it's at Great State Paranormal,
Okay.
We're still figuring that one out because I don't TikTok. And then, of course, greatstateparanormal.com.
Awesome. So guys, like, please go give his team and Dustin some love, and we'll discover some more things out here about demonology. It is fascinating, and I think that there's so much more to discover because, you know, you've got those people that can go online and for, I think it used to be $50 years ago. It was like $50 you could become a demonologist. Now I think it might be 99. I think they raised it a little bit. So you can get certified. All you have to do is take a couple. I don't even think it takes much. I think you just kind of answer some questions and then you can
Could be interesting.
Yeah, and you can become a demonologist. But you know, that's just, you almost have to wonder if that's the devil working in something, because you're setting a lot of people free here with not really understanding what they're doing, what power they're utilizing with that, right? So I don't know if I would maybe.
Yeah, it almost seems like just studying demonology would open you up to problems.
It could. I mean, if you're not in that right mind state, I think we have to be very careful about what you, Dustin, I think you said at the beginning, you kind of have to be careful what you're asking for, right? You kind of have to be very, very, you should tread those waters very lightly, because you're going to get it and then you're not going to really know what you're doing. Guys, I hope you all that are here tonight do jump over to Paranormally Blind. You've got some great comments and some great questions. And actually,
more.
Rob, I need you to go back over to Paranormally Blind and write down that list of oppression, infestation, obsession, and possession. I'll never remember that. So if you could just jump over to Paranormally Blind and leave that in the comments, that'd be great. So we can talk about that a little bit. Yeah, we could do a group exorcism. Like that's interesting. Could you do a worldwide exorcism? I don't know. Boy. Those are some questions. Maybe we'll continue on with Dustin. So guys, please go check out Great State Paranormal. Give them some follows, some likes. Check out their TikTok. They're all over the place. They get it. They're young. They get it. Right. So thanks so much for coming on to Paranormally Blind here on the X, the new mainstream. And next week, I know we've got April pretty much filled, but I think next week is the one day that I don't have filled yet. So we will keep you up to date who our guests are coming up. But I do know we've got Bill from Empty Casket coming on in April to talk about EMF. We're going to get like a deep dive into EMF. So we will catch you next week.